I think it's almost impossible to try and sum up, what you have said. There's been a fantastically rich discussion in all the groups. I think basically if I were to look at it, I can just say in 3 areas. One is public policy. Many of you talked about public policy and how public policy can shape and influence a lot of things. Just as the OSC has gone into greater substance, detail on education, healthcare is also one area where there will be a lot more discussion, and rest assured that the points that you have raised will be inputs for that discussion as well. And some of you, for instance, asked this issue about the CPF, for why is there a lower CPF contribution for the older people? Isn't that a negative signaling as to the fact that the older people are able to contribute less and therefore they should be paid less, even in terms of the CPF contributions? The policy started with good intentions, and that is basically to try and make the cost lesser for employers so that older people can be more employable, because we have seniority-based wage system. But as you correctly pointed out, no policy is cast in stone. We should always look at policies and revisit them, particularly if the policies have already outlived their purpose and ought to be re-looked at in the event that people begin to look at it from a negative perspective rather than a more positive perspective. Then many of you talk about the role of employers also, and that's very critical. Employers do have an important role in terms of how they can shape this conversation. They can also help provide support for those elderly people who are working with them, our senior citizens, or our special needs, or people from disadvantaged backgrounds. So you talk about employers needing to put in place company policies that are supportive of the elderly friendly, CSR, a very major component, because employers are also part of the community, because they too need to legitimize their existence. They are not there just because of creating profits for themselves and their shareholders, but rather they need to also legitimize their existence in society as to why society should support them. Particularly employers also do get a lot of grants and support from the government. The third part you talk about is the community, and this, I think, the various groups tying with the last group that is on building a strong community, I think is very critical and core. You talk about the role of the VWOs, about the grassroots organizations, but I think much more important than that, you also talk about us, we and I.